to order at 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Welcome to our new member, Councilor Matt Rushton. It's good to see you. It's good to see you here. We're kind of shake things up this year, I guess. All right, meeting's been called to order. Have anybody had a chance to review the minutes from July 21st, which I think just Sean and I will vote on that?
Yes.
Shall we entertain a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, Sean, yes?
Yes.
Yes. 2-0 and 1 extension. We'll quickly do our two pieces of legislation, then we'll have a presentation from our finance director. Legislation referred order FY 21-010 assessment of the cost of the public improvement on 4th Street. There is no dollar, there is no, I don't know, Tony, do you feel comfortable talking about this, or?
I do. I have all the documentation.
Okay, do you want to just explain?
Yeah.
Yep.
So a number of months back, the council approved a legislation that would allow for an improvement to private roadway in this particular area, 1st Street. And that approval gave the town manager the authorization then to, on behalf of this private group, go out and find bonding and or funding sources to fund this project, which would be paid for through a betterment by those receiving the betterment of the roadway and drainage improvement. So this is the last step in the process. All those parties were notified along the way as to the estimates of the costs. They signed on for the project. 2/3 of those parcel owners on the street required to sign off on that. That was done. And the project is now complete, and therefore it's time to record the actual betterment towards the property and bill those parcel owners their benefit assessment cost. They can pay it in full if they so choose, or they can pay it over 10 years, which gets added to their tax bill. And it becomes an official lien against the property so that if that parcel is sold, that lien obligation or that assessment is met. So there's one lot number 55A, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 commercial condos on it. So they're getting to split the cost, and all the other individual parcels paying the full amount. So a full assessed amount for the betterment per lot is $47,022.50, $47,022.50. The parcel that is split to the different condo owners on that parcel is $5,224.72. The total assessment for this betterment is $846,404.98. So that's what you would be approving here, giving the finance department, the treasurer, and the assessor the authority to now levy this betterment.
Any questions for the finance director?
No. And Dennis, just to let you know, that number is within the attachment for the order. It's in the last paragraph, the 846,405.
Oh, I see it. Yep.
Thank you for that, John.
Yep.
Dennis, could I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Matt.
More so out of curiosity, because we're at the ending point here, but you had mentioned that it appears as though 2/3 of the lots have to okay it in order to move the project forward. Everyone's assessed, so 1/3 can't opt out of it. It's just that they might have said no, but the betterment still goes by them. It still improves their location. They're still assessed that fee.
The answer is yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
And is this, Tony, is this an amount that they could appeal to the assessors and say it should be less? This is a fixed known amount, and this is what it is, right?
This is what it is. This is the cost of the project.
Okay, without any other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? Seeing none, Sean George,
Yes.
Matt Rushton,
Yes.
and Dennis votes yes. 3-0. Sean and Matt. Okay, then we'll after under order FY21-012, World War I guardrail flagpole repair. This was brought up by me at the last council meeting. I don't know if the town manager's got an amount yet, but this is,
I've been in touch with him, Mr. President. I've been in touch with him, and the estimate at this point, matter of fact, he just sent me the estimate via text, is approximately $30,000. That would be on the high side, but it gives us room to make sure we meet this obligation.
okay, so we know what the amount approximately is going to be on the high side. So obviously, we discussed this at the council meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
It's moved by Sean George. Is there a second? Second by
Second,
Matt.
second,
Any other
just a quick
discussion?
question. Yeah,
Sure.
Dennis, if I could, just to go back to the last town council meeting, I just want to clarify in my memory, this is the flagpole and the guardrail?
Yeah, right when you enter into the rotary, if you want to call it a rotary, there's that opening where there isn't anything to protect the car. And there's two cement pillars that are like been busted off, and there's only like a 3-inch stub like showing from the ground. So those two things need to be replaced. And then the metal railing that would go on the side of them need to be replaced. And then the flagpole, obviously. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm understanding that. I just wanted to clarify with you, was it sent to here or was it sent to public safety? Because I had reached out to Ann. I just want to clarify, or am I talking about something different?
You are, Matt. This one was referred to the Budget and Finance Committee. There was something submitted by Council Wood that wanted to do some sort of a protective barrier there until we decided what we were going to do with the common and traffic flow and all that. So that was sent to public safety. This one was referred right to here.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's a motion, there's a second to approve. All those in favor, or Sean?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dennis votes yes, it's unanimous. Nothing. Okay. Okay, those are the only two pieces of legislation we have to vote on tonight. The finance director has reached out to give us an update on our year-end fiscal 20 results. We all got a package or a presentation from him in our packet. So I've gone through it, and I'll refer to the finance director. Thank you for putting this. Did he leave? Oh, he's right.
Sorry about that.
I'll refer to the finance director for a year-end fiscal 20 recap, I guess.
Yeah, and so you have the document. It's now been distributed, so it's a public document. I'm wondering if the group, the committee, would want to ask questions. Allow me to just give a synopsis of the bottom line results. What would you prefer?
Personally, I would prefer a synopsis.
Excellent.
Pretty much a synopsis on how we met our revenue projections or didn't meet our revenue projections. Same
Sure.
with expenses, yeah.
Sure, I can do that. So You've seen all the documents, you had a chance to read them, so there's no particular questions. And what I would say is, let's look at the revenue side of the equation first, okay? So if you look at where we stood, budget to actual for our property taxes, we were $308,227 below. That affects our free cash number by reducing our available free cash. But what it doesn't do is doesn't cause what the DOR would refer to as a revenue deficit, because these real estate and property tax bills, personal property tax bills, can be liened, so they're secured. Okay, so the bad news is we did see a slowdown, and we anticipated that as we extended the due date to the 29th of June for the final orders payment for property and real estate. And we knew some of that was, those collections were going to bleed into FY21. Okay. So that's where we stood. But we still, again, collected, I believe the percent is approximately 97.3.
97.6.
99.3% of budget, or 97% of what was forecasted. So then we jump back to and look at local receipts, and I will speak to those local receipts that really drove our end result, but I'll also point to a trend that we're seeing. So let me try to do two things at once. Overall, we did have a positive on the local receipt revenue of 133.5% of budget, or 1,791,771. But the majority of that, the vast majority of that, came from licenses and permits. And we achieved about $300,000 of those licenses and permits from the work that's being done out on Elm Street. Now, the reason I'm highlighting that is because typically new permits such as that would then equate into new growth for the next fiscal year. But because those revenues for the new growth for the next coming year are for the debt service for the project on Elm Street, that revenue or that growth won't be realized until the debt obligation has been met. So just keep that in mind. So the licenses and permits that are from permits, of that $1,791,000 that I gave you, $1,027,000, if you will, came from permits, and of that $300,000 we will not realize any new growth from. So we are getting a hit to our bottom line. It was significant there, but in fact I wanted to make you aware of that. Some of the other key areas. Yes.
So when's the debt obligation paid off?
Yeah. It's a 20-year note, and we just bonded it. So let's say 2040.
Okay.
The good news is if we can prepay that. So for instance, if we were to see more new growth than we needed to meet the debt obligation, then we could accelerate that.
Okay.
Okay.
We did,
Yep.
if I'm looking at my numbers correctly, we budgeted for fiscal 20, we anticipated a $462,000 revenue figure for that, right? For fiscal 20? For licenses and permits, we budgeted, we figured out 462 would be what we would project.
Yep, 1 second. Licenses and permits, we budgeted 828,036. If I got that correct. Wait a second, I'm sorry. Let me get to it.
462.
April projected budget, that was my projected budget. Yeah, yes, 462, that's licenses and permits for that category.
Right.
And there's recurring licenses and permits, which we subclassify.
But the year before, in fiscal 19, we budgeted 572. So we already saw going from 19 to 20, a potential drop in those fees, because we dropped it about 100,000, but we were lucky to get that one time. So there's your trend is correct. It's, well, as far as what we're projecting, one of these, like Mike and you have said, fiscal 21 is going to be a big test, but.
Yes, so thank you for that clarification. Let me jump to another highlight. So I think another key one is in motor vehicle excise tax. There was a surplus of $306,000. But if we look at comparative revenue from last year, FY20 as compared to FY19, there was a roughly $1,000 reduction in the overall receipts in motor vehicle. You can find that notation on the local receipts revenue report by major revenue stream document that you have. So in that document, what I also wanted to show is comparative to budget, but I also wanted to show the trend from last FY19 as compared to FY20. The same thing on the meals tax, another category. We did meet our budget. We met it at about 120%, which is slightly above, $60,000 above. But we also want to point out that we had a reduction in that, not as much as we had anticipated, but we believe we'll see a greater reduction in the first quarter of FY21 there. So one of the other categories that I think is worth noting, so there's my local receipts. So the big numbers, your motor vehicle excise. I did want to touch on meals because that has been an important number and we don't want to see that erode. And I touched on licenses and permits. On the plus side, we were able to achieve some great investments this year. How we're managing our cash has changed. We're in line with the auditor's recommendations and the general laws that require how we can invest. And we did achieve $177,028. So overall, in the local receipts, state aid, and personal property tax, of the free cash estimate that you see of $1,891,204, $1,512,817 came from revenue. The additional monies came from unencumbered, unexpended appropriations of $705,000, and a net change to our reserves and deficit offsets of $327. That brought us down to that $378, $386, which then puts us at the $1,891,204. Now I'm giving you some details inside the numbers that you don't see on your free cash estimate, but those are the highlights that drove the $1,891,000, $1,005,000 in revenue and $378 in turned back appropriations, if you will. Any other questions on the revenue side? Motor vehicle are trending down. Meals tax, room tax trending down as we anticipated. Penalties on interest, it's important. That's,
Interest.
yes,
Sean, do you have a question?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna, I'm looking at the numbers. I was just gonna bring that up, and that's interesting, but that also has to do with the state giving the moratorium on penalty and interest, correct?
that is correct. Anyone paid, they got from May to the end of June without penalty and interest, as long as they pay by the 29th of June.
Right.
Yep. I think the only other highlights that is not in your packet that may be in your mind's eye is the golf course ended up with the supplement that was provided late in the year. They did end up in the black, approximately $67,000. Plus they had some money left over in reserves from last year that we were still leaving in there. So they're sitting with about $100,000 in reserves. So that positions us for this coming year. But the great news is, because golf is one of those activities that you can do outdoors, our revenue for the month of July is up 25% from last year.
That's good.
So, and that's what I'm seeing across the industry. I happen to be an avid golfer myself, and that particular industry is booming right now because it's someplace that people can go to get outside, and it's not a park that has restrictions.
Tony, have we gotten any indication on how the clubhouse is doing?
Well, now that the restaurant changes have been made, they had some outside seating. They're back into a decent operation, particularly because the outings now can be held.
Right.
And that was until the beginning of July. So I can't say that they're up and running 100%, but I would say, based on my conversation with Mr. Barrett and Charlie, they're around 75% because the golfers come through, they can get things on the way around, they serve them. It's like a pickup meal or takeout meal, plus they have the outside seating, and they're still having those functions where they have done their best to make things work. So that's positive news. So we hope that the trend continues. The weather's been good this summer, and in between now and the end of October is when they will really make hay. We'll know where they stand. The other fund that received some funding at the end of the year was a transfer station, and they ended up better. We were concerned that because of the COVID, there might be a reduction, a more significant reduction in revenue. We didn't see the reduction in revenue that we thought. So they ended up with a surplus of about $104,000. So that puts them in good standing, and they had a little bit of a surplus last year. So both those enterprise funds where there was funding required. And my last comment was there were some rate changes in for the transfer station sometime in March or April. It is my hope and our tracking that we'll be monitoring it, that they will be in a black financial situation come next April, May, which will not put a burden on the general fund.
Very good.
That's it, kind of in a nutshell, guys.
Any other questions for Tony?
Yeah, Tony, do you foresee, this is kind of, I know we broached it a little bit, but do you foresee any CARES money coming in for police and fire for, I'll say, quote unquote, overtime, or however you want to put it, that would be COVID related. Do you see any money coming our way?
Oh, COVID-related overtime, we submitted a request for FEMA, I should say we, the fire department, with help from Melissa Sullivan, who's been our FEMA expert for years. She was able to help us out, plus finance. We submitted for reimbursement for overtime related to COVID. First, we had to start with FEMA. And then the 25% that FEMA doesn't cover, we've submitted to CARES. And that's around, well, short of doing the math, around in the $80,000 range. We're going to get that reimbursed. So we're going to be whole for all that overtime related, whether it be highway, police, or fire. The FEMA money we'll have to wait longer for, but the 25% CARES we should have within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
We also continue to pay for
Now, how do we,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
yeah, no, when the money comes in, how do we account for that? Does that go into reserves because it's a one-time revenue?
Right. So for the FEMA, what we did was we booked the FEMA costs that you described, for example, into a special fund. And we're waiting reimbursement. And if you looked at the free cash estimate,
Page 4.
you'll see that we have 248,260 deficit that is waiting funding. So they're holding it against our free cash, but once we get those revenues in, and then we have 126,000 in the CARES line, we'll get reimbursement for that. So that means that total of 374 ends up freeing up next year for free cash. So we'll have that hit to our free cash because the DOR won't offset our figure by that deficit. That make sense?
Yep.
Yes. I mean, had we not incurred these overdrawn account amounts,
Yes.
then free cash would be almost about 2.3 million instead of the 1.8 million.
Yep.
So the monies that you had last week, wasn't there a little ceremony where the county gave a check? Is that the 126?
No, they gave. So what you have here is you have the under the CARES, you don't have the 25% in yet. So that 126 represented 30,000 that they dropped off a check for that we got in FY21, and then we'll get another check for the difference, roughly for the difference again by the end of September. So we'll get those monies. That deficit will be gone.
Yeah.
FEMA could take longer. It could take over a year to get those funds.
Wouldn't surprise me.
So that's why we're trying to put everything we can eligible.
You froze up, Tony.
I already made a dig to the county commissioners that they didn't have a
towards CARES.
big check.
It's also important. Oh,
You froze up a little. You froze up a little bit, Tony.
oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
So lastly, I will say is that we have been in touch with the school. We have a number of pieces of information that we have to process for them, and they'll be getting reimbursements. So we'll be out communicating all of that. We're going to get caught up the remaining portion of the summer. So you'll get that communicated. And we have availed ourselves of some CARES money for the extra staff at the golf course for COVID management. But that's it.
Okay, any other questions for Tony on the budget for FY20? Obviously, 21 is still new. Too early to see how things are going, but I do worry about, like you say, the meals tax, because if the social distancing or the amount of people that can gather in one area doesn't change or gets worse, what are they're gonna lose all that outdoor seating because of the weather in just a couple months. So,
Yeah, that's a big deal.
yeah,
Could I just ask a quick question?
yep.
Just in terms of visualization for me, I'm looking at page 10, the local receipts revenue report.
1 second, let me pull that page up.
So I find the quarter by quarter comparison to be extremely helpful.
Yes.
I don't know if this document exists or not, but I'm wondering if it's possible if in that quarter by quarter comparison, we could add 2 more lines in there. One
What would you
be,
like to see?
so fiscal 21 anticipated revenue, and then as we get into each quarter, fiscal 21 actual. Is that
Sure.
something that's possible to kind of watch this quarter to quarter? It shows us a 2-year comparison plus what we're doing currently and what we've budgeted for. Is that possible?
It absolutely is possible, and I'll commit to doing that, because one of the things I'm looking for is, that's great feedback. If that's of value to you, then we can do that. Absolutely.
Awesome. That'd be great.
Will do.
Anything else?
No, I mean, I guess my only comment would be, looking at this document, it's extremely impressive. And I would say that, as a resident, we should be proud of the work that's being put into the detail to understand, where numbers are going up and down and for what reasons are driving those. I mean, this is just an unbelievable document. And, thank you very much for putting it together. It's been very helpful.
I appreciate that. I will pass it along to the staff. They have done yeoman's work and
Yeah.
you showed your support. So I thank you for that.
Thank you. Right. Anything else?
I have nothing.
Nothing.
Okay, I do see one person online. Is there any public comment? Anybody here in the public that'd like to speak? I can't see if there's any hands up, so I'm gonna take that as a no.
I don't see any.
No. The time is 7:32. We don't have anything else outstanding for us to vote on. Our next council meeting is the 8th of September. Some things may get referred to us that night, but we don't need to meet again before September 8th anyway. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Matt. Any discussion? All those in favor? Matt?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. Okay, time is 7:33. We are adjourned. I'll see you all in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yep.
Thank you,
you, Tony.
gentlemen. Have a good
Go
one.
Bruins.
Yeah.
You too.